Hello and welcome to Health Professional Radio. Thank you so much for joining us today. Our guest in studio today is Dr. Kevin Haselhorst, an ER doctor and the author of Wishes to Die For, where he talks about how he transitioned from not only an ER doctor, but someone who is well-versed in end-of-life care. And he's here with us today to talk about Omega Care and how it differs from traditional hospice care, and also about Graceful Departures, as well as a little bit about his book, Wishes to Die For. How are you doing today, Doctor?
I'm doing well, Mr. Howard. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for returning with us today. Tell us what happened to propel you into the world of writing books, from an ER doctor to an author, not only one, but both.
Well, I think the whole sense of writing things down is you have the ability to connect the dots. And as I started creating identifying the problems that I was seeing, I also do the practice of yoga. So the combination of bringing awareness to what I'm doing in my practice of medicine created a much more heart-centered focus to how I could message this ability to cope with the end of life. You know, yoga is a lot about the tension of opposites. You're sitting in poses. You're trying to figure out, where the center is. And that's where patients are at the end of life is where's my center? How do I know that I'm right? And that's an intuitive kind of thing. It isn't something that somebody tells you. And that's what I really got clear about in the book, is that I need people to join me in this journey of feeling the tension and then finding a sense of rightness. And when an opening happens, when the release happens, it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. That's how I want to go.
Now, this is not the first work that you've penned. You're also the author of another book.
Well, I created a book on my website called Graceful Departures called Sail the 7 C's of Graceful Departures. Yeah. It identifies the 7 C words. It's almost like an orderly progression around how you get to comfort is through composure. Like the first C is composure. You don't have competence. You don't have the ability to commitment unless you can actually put your emotions aside and start getting on with the subject as hand or what you have to deal with. And so it's enrolling people in this notion of a journey, an end of life journey, as to how you might wrap your mind around it and create a sense of peace in the process by going through this exercise of sailing the 7 C's.
When we oftentimes when we talk about the end of life, it focuses on how those that are going to still be here should deal with the end of the patient's life. It seems that your books, Wishes to Die For and Sail the 7 C's of Graceful Departures, focuses much, much more on how the person who's facing the end of life should prepare for it within themselves.
Yes, and going back to the difference between Omega Care and Hospice Care is, I love the line, I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. I claim my life and I want to claim my end. A person who would choose Omega Care would say, I'm ready now. It's time. Most patients enter into hospice sort of unwillingly or because they have no other option. They didn't necessarily claim it. They were sort of relegated to that. I don't want people to die with a sense of disempowerment. I want them to claim the end of life as powerfully as they claim the middle of life and the beginning of life. And to enroll people in that idea, it gives them a sense of, you don't query what the meaning of life is when you already sort of know that you've completed your purpose. You have a whole sense of fulfillment at that end. Hospice care feels like you're either in the killing fields or however people message it. It unfortunately it does provide the right service, but with a lot of times the wrong reason. People feel like they've lost if they end up in hospice care.
And your books, I guess they're a guide to achieve that certainty, that self-assurance that you need.
Correct. They definitely, I'm not about helping people anymore. I'm about empowering them. I really want them to own it on some level. It's not for me to decide what's important to them or how they live their life or how they die. I'm here to support them, but I also think they need to be educated more, because I don't think we're fulfilling. I think when you put it out there and articulate it in a way that makes sense to people, that they'll grasp it and they'll own it, and they will feel like they did it their way instead of the doctor's way. Go to gracefuldepartures.com and download the free copy of Sail the Seven Seas of Graceful Departures. Okay. And Wishes to Die For is going to be re-released in January. It'll be on Amazon.com, and you can pre-order it now.
You've been listening to Health Professional Radio. I'm your host, Neal Howard. We've been in studio talking with Dr. Kevin Haselhorst, an ER doctor and author of Wishes to Die For, as well as other works, Sail the Seven Seas of Graceful Departures. We've been here talking about Omega Care and how it differs from traditional hospice care, and also talking about Graceful Departures as well as his books, and how he transitioned from not only being an ER doctor, but an ER doctor and an end-of-life care expert. It's been great having you here with us today, Kevin.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Transcripts and audio of this program are available at healthprofessionalradio.com.au and also at hpr.fm, and you can subscribe to our podcast on iTunes.